Thanks for tuning in and welcome back to the shop. Some of you may recall several months ago I purchased a set of 1,500-pound trailer tongue jacks. The idea being purchasing 4 of these jacks, I could place one on each corner of the camper to lift it on and off the truck. Now there's a couple nice features about these jacks. First off, more than anything, they're electric. So that means there's not very much work to do. They also have an individual up-down button. They've got a little light on them. And you may remember I used them to move the subframe around as I was loading it onto the truck for paint and blast, and also getting it off. Now when I purchased these jacks, there were 2 things that I knew I was going to have to modify. One of them is the height, and the other one is the control system. Today, I'm going to start with the control system. Now, while it is really nice to have individual up-down buttons on each of the jacks, I'm sure you can imagine how much running around the truck it would take to slowly raise each jack individually to the height where we can lift it off the truck. I don't want to get rid of the individual height control because that'll be handy to set the initial starting point, but I want to add in simultaneous control where I can make all 4 jacks go up together and all 4 jacks go down together. So essentially what I'm going to want to do is have the ability to use the onboard control system or, and not and, use a separate control system. So to start with, there's going to be a switch that allows me to switch from local control to remote. And then there's going to need to be a whole bunch of relays that control forward and reverse inside each motor from a single signal.
Here is the circuit that I came up with as a starting point. The upper half is the original jack, pretty much kept as is, but adding in the selector switch that I was talking about. The lower half shown is the control relay and its input signals, and I've tied into the same power feed. With this setup, the double throw rocker switch can be set so that either the original control or my system is sending power to the motor, but neither system can backfeed to the other.
So that was the original circuit concept, but in consideration of the amount of space that I have to work with inside here, and also the cost of a 12-volt double pole double throw relay and how it works, I think I'm better off to go with several single pole double throw relays. Which means inside here there are going to be 4 relays and 1 switch.
The reason that I need 4 relays is because I need to switch both positive and negative and be able to reverse the polarity. To do this, the relays are paired, so one pair controls up and the other pair controls down. Within each pair, one relay switches negative and the other switches positive. Effectively, they're all set up the same way, but with a crossover wire connecting the negative and positive outputs for a common connection to the motor.
And I don't know about you, but I really have a disliking for square switches. For centuries, man has tried to figure out how to put square pegs in round holes. All we needed was the invention of a 3D printer. As you can see right here, this has been printed in 3D after drawing in SketchUp. I've got a 4mm gap, a little lip to catch the edge. So this should pop into a 1.5 inch or 38mm hole. And following that, and we have a round switch. So with these switches installed in the jacks, I will be able to select whether the output of the internal control module or the output of my control module is actually feeding the motor. Being that these relays will be controlled in pairs, it only makes sense that I mount them in pairs. So I have created a very small relay holder that these simply pop into in pairs, and I now effectively have 1 relay module per direction per motor. So there'd be 2 of these mounted inside each of the jacks. So why didn't I print these to hold 4 if I need 4 relays per jack leg? Well, space. These are going to be mounted 2 on each side of the motor because that's how much space I have inside the case. Simply putting a piece of double-sided tape along here, sticking it down to the side of the motor, I will have 4 fairly easily accessible relay contacts, and if I ever need to change one out, I just pop it out of the holder, pop a new relay in. These are a standard automotive style relay, so they're not complicated. I should be able to find these pretty much any auto parts store anywhere in the world.
So with the case of the jack removed, we can see the main power cable coming in and feeding the onboard controller. The controller output wires then come out and feed the motor. So by disconnecting the lines that feed the motor, I can insert my control select switch into the circuit pretty easily. Unfortunately, the wires are not quite long enough to reach the location that I want to put the control, but that means I can also keep all the factory connections intact when I make the extension wiring. Configured like this, I'm back to factory control when the switch is pushed to the right or the number 2 position. To mount the switch, I'm going to drill into the base, as this is where the most internal space is. 38mm drill, and in we go. With the hole drilled, the adapter plate slips into place, pops in the switch, and we get a nice, clean finish. Now I need to extend all the wiring down to the base where the switch is. Luckily I have some scrap wire with lots of different colors to keep it easier to understand. I'll keep the motor red and black and use the other colors for the 2 control system feeds. Just a reminder to always give a tug test when you are crimping wire connections, and you may be surprised at how many actually pull back off. With the extension complete, the wires get fed from the base up to the top, where we can tie them back into the original wiring. It's always good to keep a wide selection of terminals on hand, but even with this, you'll end up running out of the one type you actually need. It never fails. Next, I started to build the relay modules, and there are a lot of jumpers and connections that need to be stuffed in here.
Ever been way deep into a project and then realized there's probably a much simpler way of doing it? I think I just hit that point. Make sure you subscribe because I'm going to have to rethink this whole thing now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.